and have competent technocrats like you now leading a very important portfolio, and obviously will facilitate engagements because your portfolio is bigger than just the project that we're discussing. So colleagues, being mindful in terms of time, and I know one of our key panelists has a hard stop at 11:30. Let me invite the colleagues just to come and take some few questions. So if you've got a question for Koketso, a question for Andy, a question for Maide, and maybe for the deal makers as well, hence I'm inviting Sibati to be also part of the conversation. Last week I was in another event and the MC ended up being the one asking questions, and people were not very happy in the audience to say, okay, he was supposed to give them the opportunity to engage, and we don't want to lose people. So maybe quick, session in terms of Q&A. So Koketso, if I may invite you.
Thanks so much. But on a more serious note, I always say that selling the OR TAMBO SEZ is very much about promoting OR TAMBO International Airport. Maybe it's in the name, but our value proposition is centered very much around what the airport can offer for companies that are looking to produce for export. Because at the core of an SEZ is production or export-led growth, and the idea that South African companies, or for that matter investors, they don't have to be South African. We in fact encourage FDI that they can come in and produce and export to OR TAMBO International. OR TAMBO International still retains the #1 spot in South Africa as being the busiest airport we have. From a cargo perspective, 92% of all air cargo in South Africa is routed through OR TAMBO International. Of that, 72% is very much again around the province and the capability. So if you look at it, you will realize that locating at the zone ensures that you reduce your production, your transport costs. Of course, as an SEZ, there are additions, the VAT, the duty realization. Those are part of the cost for any SEZ, and we certainly have those as well. But the big one is definitely that location in the terms used by marketers is a real thing for us.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Masara. I'm a French citizen investing in South Africa now for years. And I'm sitting in the agri-tech sector, and my business partner in the mining industry, so I'm sitting exactly at the target here. I would like to give kind of a feedback and a suggestion to the program manager as a foreign investor here in South Africa, because you might not hear what we also have as challenges.
Yes.
I'm not sure if I'm the only one here around, but I'm going to speak for everyone around who's coming from a foreign country to invest in South Africa. I came here 7 years ago, and my business partner came even 8 years ago. And it has been such a challenge, and still a challenge, to get through the right channels from a home affairs point of view. So my suggestion here to the program managers may include a home affairs, I would say, as a part of the puzzle, because I know 3 investors already that left the country from France because they couldn't get the paperwork done. So it's very, I'm here because I'm still here and still battling for that because I love the country. And the potential here is just amazing. And I want to congratulate you for putting together such a program. It's beautiful, it's big ambition, and I think it can bring a lot to what this country has and to the youth in this country. But I also think that as if you want to try it, I'm going actually in a few weeks to Monaco because I worked for the Monaco government for years. And I know investors last time, they would be amazed by such an opportunity. But if we can make them feel welcome, and I'm talking as a South African myself, because I embraced the place, I think we really have added value, and also that small part of the puzzle that makes people, say, what is really missing here for me to go to South Africa and invest my money there, and invest my energy, and maybe put also all what we learned, because we also come with technical aspects and know-how that we bring. As an engineer, I come with know-how from us. So if we can add that to as a part of the whole program, I think it would be really amazing. Thank you.
My name is Joseph from a company called SANDTON. We are a medical device company that we're looking into manufacturing our devices locally. We're currently importing them from Europe. So my question is direct to Madeleine. Sorry about it. About a few years ago, we contacted ORT TAMBO Specialized Economic Zone, looking into putting our manufacturing facility in the Specialized Economic Zone. But they did specify that they are looking into 90% of export, and which in our case we are looking into export. But because currently we are our business is more in the local and in the local, we want to be very strong in our economy, in our local market before we look into export. So even though our long-term goal is export, but we want to be very strong where we are and be able to service our current customers across all the provinces, and before we look into exporting as well. So I'm just saying, my question is, I saw that you do have the medical device that you want to host also. Is it still the case with looking into exporting? Or can we come, because at the moment we are also exploring to the trade port, because at least they can allow us to do that. But that's my question, because our business is based here in Gauteng.
So when we say 90%, we mean, so the SEZ incentives in a particular fashion, and what the SEZ incentives will tell you very clearly. To access the incentives, especially in relation to the VAT, the customs, it is required that 90% of the company's revenue or activities must be in the zone. But firstly, must be from the zone. Secondly, it has to be geared for export. However, it does not mean that. And we realized that very quickly with the medical devices space, because we've been in conversations with Summit. We had Summit last week, in fact, for the annual general meeting, that we still need to do a lot of import substitution. And the reality is you cannot jump to export promotion if you don't do import substitution. But you can only do import substitution if we allow companies such as yourselves, the platform, to be in the zone. So it may well be that when you're in the SEZ, you might not be able to access some of the incentives. But the takeaway from that, conversely, is that you will be in an environment that will allow you to competitively compete, if you will, with players that are part of the value chain from a cluster approach. And through that, it would help you still reduce your business costs. Would also provide the infrastructure and the platform that would support you in the production space. So along that particular value chain, whether it is from testing, whether it is from the sharing of particular infrastructure, these are all the things that we have explored with Summit and are very much part of the plan that we're wanting to put up at PRECINT too. So we definitely can have that conversation. I see you're sitting next to Takani, so she is the right person to speak to about that and how we take that forward. But there's definitely opportunity there. With regards to the lady, I am so sorry to hear about your plight. I think it's safe to say that everyone in this room at some time or the other may have had challenges with Home Affairs, whether it is you getting your passport or, I don't think it's restricted necessarily to foreign nationals. That said, I think there is a particular pinch when you're not from South Africa and you have to suffer that pain. What's also true, however, about the dispensation that we have presently is that there is a concerted effort to ensure that all these things, the red tape and all the challenges that foreign businesses or foreign nationals may face when in South Africa are dealt with. And so as the SEZ program, one of the things that is at the center of the SEZ program is what is called the one-stop shop. The idea for the one-stop shop, or has been rebranded now as Invest SA, is that we would have all the relevant government departments that need to support investment into the country, especially if it's FDI-led. So if it's Home Affairs, for instance, how do we help you get in touch with Home Affairs so that the issues of the visas can be expedited? If it's CIPC related, how do we ensure with the support of the DTIC that those registrations are done timelessly? So all of that is very much a part of the ecosystem that a special economic zone does offer an investor, and we'll be happy to take that offline with you and discuss how we can support. But absolutely, there is opportunity for that. We have, again, Gauteng in particular, had the one-stop shop concept. They were the first in the country to ensure that it's operational. It continues to operate from number 1 SANDTON Drive. And on the back of that, national government through the Invest SA concept has mirrored that, and we have now a number of one-stop shops or Invest SA offices throughout the country. Once again, our apologies, but we can assure you that when we say we are open for business, we mean exactly that. And so we can support you to unlock all those opportunities, or at least the challenges that you're facing.
I think for us, this is an important partnership, especially as it was mentioned that with government, public-private partnership, we need to build trust. As FNB, we bank about 1.35 million businesses, and we want to make sure that we can bring government and government services to the customers that we bank and make sure that we benefit, because there's quite a lot of services that government is doing for businesses that we bank. So that's why we have these kind of platforms that we support it. So on our side, whether we talk export, global trade, which fuels economic growth, this for us is extremely important. If you export, if you import, we provide foreign exchange offerings, trade offerings. We offer facilities for working capital. If you want to buy assets, if you want to buy or develop property, full spectrum of banking and financial services. The solutions that will help your business to grow. We are here to support you. And as you would see in our financial statements, our balance sheet is strong. We sit on over 2 trillion rands of your money that we then, with the risk management, we use to support the economy. So that's why we're here. We want to fund growth, but we want to make sure that government is part of that conversation so that we fuel the economy, we create the jobs that we need to create, and we drive economic prosperity for our country. So anything that you can think of, from personal banking to business banking to corporate banking, trade, global trade, forex, we are here to assist you.
We have companies that are in the tool, die and mold sector. Simply said, we make things that make things to simplify it for colleagues. This is true to FNB. We talked about the potential to export that we are not exploiting. That creates a vacuum, and as we know, nature does not allow for vacuums. We walk the continent and we see other players, mainly the Chinese, snapping up what should be South Africa's breakfast. In essence, snapping up the opportunities that your customers should actually be taking on the continent. And primarily, I think we are not supporting businesses to export. Back in the day, anybody who wanted something would come to South Africa and get it. Much of it was not about South Africa going out to the continent to sell. The continent came to South Africa. Now the continent has other options. What are we doing as bankers to support the development of exporters very actively? We see it with our association members. I mean, whether it was tariffs, COVID, the companies that actually survived and continue to thrive are companies that are actually exporters. In other words, members and companies that export 70-80% of their products across the world. And those companies are sustainable. and I guess they'll give good business to you as bankers. But you have to support them. You have to know what they do. So that gap has to be, and that number, I can't remember what billion, it was 25 billion? 75 billion. It's actually much bigger than that because we are looking at what is, but there is actually much more potential. How can we turn South Africa into an exporting country? Because a lot of things are now at a limit in terms of what we can do with our local market. Thank you.
I am Government Relations for Cherry International. And this is a question, I guess, they speak badly about basically investors in China. However, as you know, that we are currently doing feasibility studies in terms of basically doing local manufacturing in South Africa. My question to basically the Gauteng government, specifically maybe also to the HOD, and also basically to maybe the economist, is that basically there are economic benefits for basically SEZs in South Africa. But we noticed that Kuga specifically has a better investment climate because of the CIT. What is our government doing to make sure that there's parity around SEZs and making sure that they become very more competitive? Because that is basically one of the things that we recognize in terms of looking at investment setups, and we need to make sure that basically we are on parity with other SEZs in the country.
But when you look at IMF estimates or even estimates across different analysts, right, South Africa probably will have the lowest economic growth in terms of the magnitude of growth that you can expect over the near to medium term versus a lot of other African countries, right? And that's a feature of what Andy has already said. If we want to take advantage of the growing trend of Africa, sub-Saharan Africa, or different regions, you need to be able to plug into those markets to take advantage of that growth because you are industrialized and have diversified services and goods to offer. Now let's go back to what the financial markets or FNB is doing to assist the export potential. When we think about the National Development Plan, they said we should have investments as a share of GDP of around 20%. We did a thought leadership, which is one way that the financial sector is trying to plug into these things. We did a thought leadership piece this morning in our Economics Weekly where we spoke about investment trends in South Africa and how unfortunately we have somewhat regressed, right? And I guess where the financial sector really has an important place here is not only providing that thought leadership, but providing feedback on what is going to drive investments in the economy. And that's what we've been doing quite a lot. Think about the structural reform agenda. What Transnet initially tried to do was to say, we want you guys to invest in logistics and infrastructure so that we'll be able to improve or unlock the logistical impediments that are constraining growth. Where the financial sector really came in and said, even RNB, the deal makers were coming in and saying, guys, you need to make this a little bit more viable for the private sector to invest. Are you going to provide stop gaps for our capital that we're plugging in there? How do you secure our investments? And that's where the financial sector really comes in quite strongly to support these investments and allow these structural impediments to be unwound, right? So that's one way. The other way is, most importantly, our funding of SMEs. Because I think we also tend to focus, as much as we focus inward, we also tend to focus on the big businesses. But the small businesses also have a lot of potential in plugging into different export markets. So I think that's where the financial sector really has come in quite strongly, and obviously we do a lot with Parliament as well.
Thank you. So the corporate income tax issue is one that is a hot one, if you will, at national government level. To give context, all SEZs have parity with the exception of the 6 that have corporate income tax, and those 6 were given their approval by the Minister of Finance. The way the SEZ regime works is that all SEZs have access to the incentives, with the exception of the corporate income tax one, which is subject to the Minister of Finance. Now, a couple of years ago, the then Minister Mboweni approved 6 SEZs to have access to the corporate income tax. Unfortunately, at that point in time, OR-TAMBO was not one of those. However, these conversations about OR-TAMBO, and not just OR-TAMBO, but the other SEZs, such as the Tshwane Automotive SEZ, who's a big player as well in the auto space, are happening at national level, and we are hoping to see a change with those additions coming online. I wish I could give you a timeline. I cannot. I can definitely tell you that there are discussions happening at national level to ensure that there is a revisit. The intention was never to stop at the 6. However, because government is also re-looking the economic development strategy of a country in terms of how do we do these SEZs differently from an industrial development perspective. It's one of the things that has not gotten attention, but is certainly under discussion between Treasury and the DTIC as we speak. That said, I want to emphasize that every SEZ is different. And whilst there are similarities in terms of the incentives, I think what will make each SEZ stand apart from the other are the nuances that will make it different, whether it is the operational effectiveness of that particular zone, its value proposition, or its competitive edge that makes it differ from another zone. Speaking about Kucha, of course, they're a big player. They control 12,000 hectares, so they were one of the first ones, so it stands to reason that they have access to the CIT. But the other zones that are coming online, ORT, TAMBO, TASES, have similar advantages and can offer an investor those opportunities, barring the CIT that we're speaking about, that is the subject of discussions at national. I also want to add, lastly, that at provincial government level, one of the things that we're also looking at is how do we enhance the SEZ regime from an incentive perspective, so that we don't just rely on national government, but as Gauteng, and when we say we are open for business, what are the things that we can do differently for an investor that may want to come in and set up an auto manufacturer, for instance? What are those things, those incentives that the Gauteng government can offer? And those are some of the things that we bring to the table as well.
The question is, are South African businesses relevant to the African growth story?
Yeah.
So that's the question that we need to ask ourselves, because what we tend to do is to be internally focused and looking at the subdued economic activity and not looking at opportunities broadly and outside of South Africa. And I think, as you've mentioned, our GDP is probably about $410 millions of dollars. But if you look at the rest of the African continent, I think it's approximately about $2.8 trillion in terms of GDP in the continent. And it's projected to grow to about $4 trillion by 2030, 2050. So it's important for us to reflect and look at ourselves and say, are we relevant to the growth that is happening in the continent? And as you're saying, if we leave the vacuum, there are countries that will come and provide those services. As I said initially, 2.5 billion people in the continent, which is 25% of the world population by 2050. What are we doing about that? And even if you look around the SADC area, we spoke about GDP growth of 4, 5, 6% projected by the IMF. And currently, Africa is the second fastest growing region after Asia. But we are so internally focused and driving our business strategies only for local domestic consumption. So we need to reflect and say, what can we do to make sure that we export the existing products that we currently supply in the local market, to make sure that we grow our businesses and we grow the economy and we participate and capture value that is being created in the African continent. So that is the question that I pose back at you. But us as a bank, you will see our growth is in the African strategy. We are investing aggressively in growing our footprint in the African economy, and we are also in different countries where we can help your businesses to set shop. But also these platforms that we are creating in these conversations is to say, South Africa and Gauteng is open for business between public sector and private sector. Set up shop in these special economic zones so that you can export.
I just first want to congratulate the organizers of this event. This is a conversation that we really do need. I want to follow up on the question or comment from my brother there who made things happen. Yeah. I think as South Africa, I wrote an article that talks about South Africa should be the China of Africa, we are missing that opportunity, but we can do something about it. Currently, within the intra-Africa trade, South Africa is benefiting 600 billion rands in the intra-African trade. So we're the biggest player in the intra-African trade. But our socio-economic story in the continent is not good. And we need to invest in brand South Africa within the continent. We cannot ignore the Dudula movements and what is made prevalent about South Africa, the narrative that South Africa is anti-Africans. So we need to correct that narrative, because when you go to other African countries, many years ago it was always welcomes. Although you still have that novelty of the South African brand, it is fast diminishing because we're not tackling the narrative that is currently going around. So we need to find ways and partners that invest in the promotion of it.
Thank you, Titi. And for that message, you're saying the message rightly with the HOD here. I think he has you loud and clear. We have to do something about that. I just want to reiterate what our role is here, Titi. And when we're in a room like this, to be honest, we take the back seat as the deal maker, because then we have achieved what we seek to do. Our role, we have been mandated by ORT TAMBO SEZ, and I think it was very forward-looking on their side to actually think of bringing in a broker, like I like to call ourselves, in between the private sector and government, just to give them a reach, to help them reach where they wouldn't reach, to help them deliver the same value proposition, to sell and create an awareness, but in a faster and easier way. Our role is really to ease doing business with ORT TAMBO SEZ. We are the ones you come to engage and make sure that there's the meeting of minds, you seeking to understand that really what is it that the due diligence you need to achieve to be considered for to come into the precinct. Talk to us, we are the ones who are here to help you to get that process going, to make sure that you don't get caught up in the whole bureaucracy. I like to say to people, my role is to reduce the red tape and roll out the red carpet for everybody in the space. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandra. 30 seconds, so just your party.
Are capacitated or supported in your ability to set strategy, right? We're not here to depress you with all the economic content, but we just want to lay the land so that you guys know the challenges that you'll be operating in, but also be able to see the opportunities as well. And I hope that we've done that well today.
Thank you so much. So we must make informed decisions using data, right? Okay. Andile?
One of our purposes is shared prosperity, and with this engagement, we're saying let us build trust, let us build a bridge between us and the public sector and our customers to make sure that we remove the friction that is mistrust, which slows progress. So the more we engage, the more trust we build, and the more progress we make, ease of doing business. So let's share the prosperity. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. My day.
Firstly, thank you so much to everyone who could make the time on a Friday morning to be here. And I think we are excited and humbled that we were able to be at the FNB venue, so thank you. Looking forward to receiving queries or interest through the deal maker. We are open for business, and I think today we just wanted to send that message out once again, that we're here, we're open for business, and happy to engage and make deals that will move South Africa forward. Thank you.
Again, thanks to Team FNB, Andile, Janine, Paul, Zippo, Lax, everyone was involved, and the colleagues were here. We are really very grateful in terms of you hosting us today, really creating this opportunity for this conversation and collaboration. So really, let's give FNB a round of applause, colleagues.